From the moment my daughter was born, I had imagined the way she would die for the first 4 months of her life. There appeared to be no end to the different ways that someone or something would be able to. Came to a point of thinking, as I stood, her head held to my chest, paralyzed at the side of the freeway, unable to set another foot forward, that I must curb this train of thought. Told me it'd pass, told me it'd seem blurrier as time went on, but it always sat circling back around to ruin even the smallest moments of enjoyment. Called her after my mama. The two halves of my stomach, cleft by her absence 8 months earlier, had still yet to knit themselves back into one. And it seemed at the time this gesture, this offer of passing of name from one to another might in some way retrieve, or possibly it was hoped, replace some of what had gone missing. He seemed, from the moment he first looked up to identify himself, in search of a connection that life had so far failed to afford him. His shoes, the left sole flapping behind his heel as he pushed himself up towards me to collect the lunch token I had offered, only confirmed as much. When asked whether he'd eaten that morning, he shrugged slightly, his eyes darted to the papers across the desk, refusing to commit to any definite answer. His mama had left him at their dad's 2 winters back to go visit a friend from out of town, and it seemed that this engagement had been extended indefinitely. We were the 4th he had passed through during this period, and his tendency to find himself unable to glue himself to one place for more than a limited period of time seemed set to repeat. When she starts walking, the whole house seems like a death trap. Corners that had never seemed remotely sharp in their life could take the nose off in seconds. It was not the experience I had expected, although I am told it was also not a completely unexpected one. Didn't move as planned, not at first. A lot of shuffling. To the couch, to the kitchen. Months passed, Mom's net guidelines. I am told that this is either a sign of future greatness or a sign that she'll probably not be eligible for college. Then at one point, must be 1:30, 3 in the afternoon, I look up, and she's standing there to the side of me. 2 feet firmly planted. A little shaky, but yeah, she's vertical. What I like about it is the resilience it teaches them. I had felt, still felt, a lack of role models in that area, seriously lacking. And anything tested or new that promoted a different, correct way of thinking should be encouraged. I took it very seriously. Every year. There were a lot of questions, of course there were. This was in many ways beyond them. But I would answer, attentive, with all the care I could muster. I found it a lot. The amount of enthusiasm you are able to give the delivery, 9 out of 10 times mirrored the amount they're able to retain. Scout was their favorite. This was the norm. I guess she had something going for her. Natural protagonist? I don't know. I guess I never saw myself as much of a scout. We are told not to have favorites, or maybe not so much told officially, but it's something that's passed along from pretty much everybody who's more than a year older. But you shouldn't have favorites, it's wrong. In theory, I agree, but in practice, I find myself breaking that rule more times than I care to admit to. There's one every year, sometimes 2, no more than 3. I don't know what would define a favorite, what would stand someone out from the crowd. But I think that's part of the charm of it. There often isn't a reason. I like the naughty ones. I always have. I'm not talking the absolute psychopaths, but the low-level little fuckers. The ones who try. The ones who know you're going to do a goddamn thing but laugh. Maisie was my Karim. Watching her point-blank deny riding Will Evans' such horse dick on the back of his eraser was by far the highlight of that morning's day. And while it bought her a week's worth of detention, it also shuffled her up the leaderboard as one of the best yet. Yeah, Maisie. Her name had been Mrs. Elroy. And at the time of her passing, she had been barely 3 years into her retirement. Lydia Elroy. She told me over lunch one day that I had been one of her favorites. This took me by surprise. Not the compliment, I was no Lucifer, but I suppose I never viewed myself as in any way standing out. I suppose I must have. To dine with the woman near 20 years after she stood in a place of authority over me said as much. And here we were, knee to knee, with 2 half glasses of bourbon between us. She had always been mine. I knew this pretty early, a few lessons in early. Just something about her way, her manner, seemed otherworldly, kind. Sees this boy, Frankie something, picking on this other kid, Susan Temper. Got fat one summer, wasn't a secret, but in her pants said as much. And this Frankie boy will not relent. And Lydia, Mrs. Elroy, holds up her hand, waits for the quiet, and simply says, "There are 2 kinds of people in this world, Frankie Reynard. Reynard, that is 2 kinds. One that builds and one that breaks. You take a long, hard look at yourself when you wash up for dinner tonight. You come tell me tomorrow morning which it is you want for yourself." I knew then what I would do. Met his granddaddy once, twice maybe, twice. The first was the winter before. He'd come up to me, something about needing to see someone about a uniform and not knowing who to talk to about it. Letters had gone home from what I heard for 2-3 weeks now. People had started talking. Unkind, you know. Can't have been easy. The fella's wife had passed several years before, and you could see it. He was in no place to be looking after someone as young as that. But God loved him, he was trying. Still, the stains on his shirt had come so noticeable now. Some days I was told 3-4 in a row of the same outfit that I needed mentioning. And a conversation had to be had. I smiled politely, and his reaction had been just as much, some mumbling about God-forsaken do-gooders, and I nodded and asked if this was about the uniform situation, and he nodded it was. And I wondered for a moment whether I was supposed to know about that, and his suspicious eye hinted I was not. But I wanted in the direction of someone who could help. The second time was the following year. The aggression we had all hoped we'd seen the back of had resurfaced, and it was becoming harder and harder to keep control of the whole. He was in such a state that something had to be done. I called the old man in one evening after collection and asked if he minded staying behind for a moment, and we sat while he played in the corner on his phone. I asked whether there had been anything in particular that might have changed at home, anything of distress. And while it took a bit of encouragement, it became fairly clear pretty quickly that questions had begun to be asked about his mama's whereabouts, and answers, no matter how much he searched for them, was scarce to find. That man loved him. That was undeniable. We called him over to discuss a way forward, but it's not going in. Phone comes up, eyes go down, just as they had every day before kickoff. And the man says, "Cop! This lady's trying to help you now. There ain't gonna be a lot of people ever gonna want to do that, so you put that thing down, you put it away, you look at her and you listen." I remember his eyes, the phone sliding into his bottom pocket and flicking up to meet me. Cold, empty. That man loved him so much, and it was never registered once. I stand, taken for a moment when she says it to me. Been 2 whole months of trying. Similar to the movement, the speech is as slow to materialize. She can't make the whole word at first, to the point where I actually think she's trying to say a completely different word, the sound of a cow or something. But I hold out, I keep parroting, and surely bit by bit the 2 syllables end up following one another. I end of the night. I just about pull myself together to brush my teeth. And I look at myself and think, fuck. You would hate other people if they did this. The words continue, the smaller ones first and then bigger and bigger. I never hear the word dad. Not once for the whole first 5 years. I do not regret this, not for a moment. It only ever reconfirms the choices I made to be positive. We are told early on there will be little degree of forewarning. If there's time, if there's means, they'll signal, but I doubted this most times I thought about it. I look around the room with the similarly worried faces. This meeting's been coming. It could not. We all try to take it in. We nod, digest, we play out mental scenarios in each of our heads. And if you pay attention to one particular person, you can just about work out what's happening in their narrative. We get given a list of do's and don'ts. I worry I'll break these in the heat of the moment. I worry these will cost everyone everything. I close the door to my room behind me, stare at the rows of empty desks, and close my eyes. I look around the room and make a mental note of the cupboards, the alcoves, the way that although the desks have a metal frame, they are undeniably mostly plywood. I pick the heaviest furniture and mentally place it in front of the door. Before admitting to myself the actuality of myself being about to lift or move any of this in such a short period of time is impossible. I then take a moment, a breath, and try not to think about it. I open the Excel document, scroll down the list of names, and start inputting the data on the paperwork beside me. What I love about her is her unfailing ability to make me laugh even in the shittest of circumstances. That is not an ability she has inherited from me. Most do not appreciate my attempts to lighten the mood. She didn't get it from him either. All he left me with was gritted teeth and an inability to trust. Sometimes wonder whether there'd been a mix-up, a swap, for such magic to come from such pain is to me sometimes unreachable. She knows when I'm down. I guess it doesn't happen a lot, but when it does, and it comes with levels unimaginable. And there she is, pulling herself up into my lap, clutching the back of my neck, pulling herself into my chest. Oh, I love the smell of her hair, both washed and unwashed, and the way she can make me cry in waves of happiness I had previously thought I did not have access to. She is my world, all of it. He falls off the map pretty quickly after leaving us. We imagine what we'd usually imagine for someone in that situation. Nothing. Just a long pause of invisible, followed by an appearance a couple of years later, news report, something from one of the deputies about how he'd been put away, if only for something petty. But with him, there was nothing. No word of college, we took that as a granted, but to hear nothing from someone that, yeah, I was surprised. The grandpa had moved away into a home not near here. That's all we knew. That wasn't surprising, he was frail enough. I guess enough of us would have thought he'd go with him. Got a job, attended some sort of a life. Hope to God someone knocked some sort of sense into him. Here, here, here. There'd been light snow. Not enough to lay, but enough that people had started to get a little edgy. I leave her with my dad an hour before, and she seems content enough. I sit her down in her chair next to her grandpa and hand her Harry Potter and kiss them both on the forehead. I think nothing of it. Get in my car, start the journey, listen to Iron Maiden down the freeway. Pull in, park up, start all over again. I talk to her at lunch. Her voice is soft and quiet, and I tell her I can't hear her and hold the phone back an inch or so she hollers down at the compensate. And I ask her what she's done today, and she tells me they planted potatoes. I say, that's an odd thing to do in the snow. And she laughs, and Dad asks what I said, and she repeats it, and he laughs too. Gotta be done, he says, snow or no snow. I ask her what she's eating today. She tells me cereal, toast, and soup. And she asks me, and I stare down at the half-eaten sandwich in front of me and describe the filling. The bell sounds in the distance, and my eyes meet the clock. This hour has not felt like an hour, but nor has it ever, nor will it ever do. I ask if she's still there. She tells me she is. I tell her I'll be home soon, I won't stay behind. She tells me she'll be there. I tell her I know she will. I tell her I love her, and she laughs, calls me silly. And when I ask if she loves me back, she pauses, and then simply says, course. Maisie's looking at me to write the date bigger, so I turn around, rub the smaller scrawlings out of my hand and make it giant. I turn back, she nods her thanks. I turn to two of the others and nod them toward the window ledge where the copies of the books are kept, and they head over to pass them round. I close my eyes for a second to reiterate the lesson plan. Okay, so you'd imagine it making more noise than it does. You'd think chaos. But no, it's very quiet. I put my head round the corridor and it comes again. This pop. Takes a moment before moving. Lock the door. Pull down the blinds. Table's heavy. They help. They are astonishing. All of them. We just wait. Window goes out first. Just one. He looks older. Sad. I'm nearest, but that's, yeah. I look at him, try and close my eyes, think of her, hope. Hope whoever tells her is kind.